What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with more from the boss, which is to say Bruce Springsteen. Once more, I'd like to give a major thank you to Michaela for providing a great deal of music and a personal selection, or personally curated selection of Bruce's tunes, but she's also made available an umbrella folder with something like 20 or more individual releases, like proper releases from his discography. And in that regard, I've already enjoyed the handful of tunes we've begun this deep dive with so much that my plan now is to probably do one more or less every week, maybe somewhere between a week and a fortnight, like one Bruce tune every 10 days or so, because I very much have been keyed in to the tracks I've already heard. And in that regard, I did want to mention, there was one of the reactions I did where I talked about my personal, very vague and general recollection of his Born in the USA tune, and a couple folks commented that no, it's not a rah-rah song, it's like a protest song. Totally appreciate that notion, and my recollection of it was not based on extensive hearing it over the years, and certainly not an adult nuanced understanding of what I was recalling the lyrics to be. So again, I am a novice when it comes to Bruce's material, even though it's a name I've known all the way back to when I was a kid in the 80s. So yes, I will continue to learn, but bear with me if I occasionally, misread a song or have a sense that, wait, I've heard this before, isn't this the song that XYZ, and it turns out not to be the case. So yes, go easy on me if you will. Nevertheless, we're going to listen to The Ghost of Tom Joad, which I chose out of the personal selection folder because I've read Grapes of Wrath multiple times. I read it when I was in high school, and then years later I took a History of California class as a graduate student when I was getting my history degrees, and I remember my professor, who, I don't remember where he came from, but I think it was from the eastern United States, maybe the southeast United States. He was talking about Grapes of Wrath more generally and Tom Joad specifically, and he was like, has anyone here read the novel? And I mentioned, like, oh, it's a novel that I've read multiple times going back to when I was a teen. And he was, we ended up engaging in like a side conversation during the lecture. In any case, I do know the story reasonably well, though I haven't read the book in a long time. And yes, Tom Joad is the main protagonist. He's, I think, the second son of a poor Okie family, which is to say a family of tenant farmers, I think is the specific term, from Oklahoma. During the Dust Bowl, they're driven out west to seek agricultural employment, and they encounter a lot of hostility when they get to California, and Tom's experiences in multiple respects lead him to become sort of politically, or at least socioeconomically, radicalized or activated, and the journey that he takes, which of course relates in some ways to where we see him at the beginning of the story, recently released from prison because he shot someone, I think, in self-defense, or he killed someone in self-defense. In any case, it's a story with like social and economic and psychological nuances. My favorite part about the novel is that there's these chapters where it's like this omniscient narrator. It's like it takes a break from the story of the Joads and speaks in conceptual prose, and I really enjoyed those intervening chapters a great deal. Anyway, the point is, I enjoy the novel, so when I was scanning through track titles, I was like, oh, The Ghost of Tom Joad, instantly I'm curious about that. So I don't really know what to expect here, though maybe like taking the lessons of the novel or the character arc of Tom from the novel and extrapolating them into the real world. Now, in the moment, I don't remember when this was written. Michaela did give me some indication from when some tunes were released, but in this case I don't recall if that was one of them, so apologies for my ignorance, but let's give it a listen. This is Bruce Springsteen, and the song is The Ghost of Tom Joad.
Men walking along the railroad tracks, Going someplace and there's no going back. Highway patrol choppers coming up over a ridge. Hot soup on a campfire in the bridge. Shelter line stretching round the corner. Welcome to the new world order. Family sleeping in the car in the southwest. No home, no job, no peace, no rest. Well, the highway is alive tonight, but nobody's kidding nobody about where it goes. I'm sitting down here in the campfire light, searching for the ghost of Tom Joad. He pulls a prayer book out of his sleeping bag. Preacher lights up a buddy and takes the drag, waiting for when the last shall be first and the first shall be last. In a cardboard box near the underpass, got a one-way ticket to the promised land. Hole in your belly and a gun in your hand, sleeping on a pillow of solid rock, bathing in the city echoing down. The highway is alive tonight, the way it's headed everybody knows. I'm sitting down here in the campfire light, waiting on the ghost of Tom Joad. Tom said, Mom, wherever there's a cop beating a guy, wherever a hungry newborn baby cries, fight against the blood and hatred in the air. Look for me, Mom, I'll be there. There's somebody fighting for a place to stand, a decent job or a helping hand. Maybe somebody struggling to be free. Look in the eyes, Mom, you'll see me. The highway is alive tonight, but nobody's kidding nobody about where it goes. I'm sitting down here in the campfire light, with the ghost of old Tom Joad.
Epic, awesome, and definitely an enhanced experience if you do know the story. Like the moment, whenever there's a cop beating up a guy, which, again, by the end, Tom has become a more activated activist, I guess, for lack of a better word, and ultimately, there is violence involved. I won't spoil it, I suppose, but I will say, I've never fully seen the movie, though I've heard people talk about the end of the movie, and it's like, wait, well, that's, there's a key omission, there's a notable difference from what I've heard between the end of the novel and the end of the famous film. In any case, yeah, there's a sense of a rallying cry to be there to fight injustice, to help the common man, to protect people against abuses of authority, and so on. And so it sounds like the narrator is following or looking for the ghost of Tom Joad because he has a similar disposition. And of course, the idea of like following the railroad tracks and heading somewhere and you can't go back. They also speak to Tom's experience over the course of the novel. Though again, like the way the rest of the family ends up is notably different from where Tom is at the end of the story. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable experience, waiting to see how much connection there would be to the novel, and it turns out there is quite a bit. And yes, I love the harmonica. It's one of those weird instruments, right, where it's like a real folk instrument. It's like it sounds like it's the type of instrument that you wouldn't expect to hear in a, let's say, a popular setting, though I think it resonates with most people, whether you're into blues or folk or the genres where it's perhaps found most often. It just has this like really human quality to it, and it's one of the instruments I would say you can wail on. You can wail on a guitar, you can wail on a saxophone, and you can absolutely wail on a harmonica. And all other things being equal, I'm just going to assume that is Bruce himself playing the harmonica with one of those, rigs where he's like playing the guitar, but he can lean in and play the harmonica, and there's like a microphone right there as well. I enjoy his vocals. They're very subtle and soft. It's, the kind of like he's just telling you a story with the folksy delivery that you wouldn't be surprised, fits right into the character that he's depicting, and Tom Joad perhaps himself. And yes, I enjoy, like, having said that, I feel like there are some like keyboard or like electronic chords that are like pads in the background with some little flourishes, so I don't think it was entirely natural instruments. I think there were some keyboards on the track, if I'm not mistaken, but just a really cool journey of a tune, a story of a song. So yes, definitely one that I was happily right about, but also surprised by at the same time. In any case, as I said, we've got an incredible wealth of Bruce to go to. As I said, I will try to go through, every 10 days, at least, a week to 2 weeks time, I'll try to go through another Bruce tune. So I hope you're here for the long haul. Thank you again to Michaela. Shout out to the Sleeping Luca. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.